says starting. Okay, now.
Hey everybody. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I forgot my eraser and I had to run upstairs to get it. So, thanks for tuning in to the live webcast. Please remember to share it if there's something that you find beneficial. Bye, Sophia. And thank you, dear. And so, today we're talking about, I'm getting used to this and figuring it out. And I'm also seeing if I can see the video here so that I can get your questions. So bear with me for 1 second, okay? This is all kind of new to me. Yeah, there it is. Cool. All right. All right, hi Mom, I see that my mother's watching. So, I won't have to do that in the future, but now I know that it works. So, I told you that we were going to talk about the origin of disease and the mechanics of thriving. And that's kind of the technical title, but the real story behind depression, anxiety, and anger, okay? This is basic kind of nervous system 101 from my perspective, although you might not hear this in a lot of places. This isn't super common, but this is the basic thing. When I think about psychotherapy tools, this is the basic kind of framework of understanding that I want to provide for my clients so that they can make best use of their nervous system and become in charge of their nervous system in order to create the life that they value and choose, as opposed to continue to recreate the one that they didn't. Okay? So, if you have questions along the way, I will try to notice those coming in, and I will try to answer those, okay? So please type in your questions in the comments. If it doesn't exactly work out, forgive me and I'll get it next time. Okay, so another thing is I'm going to use writing here, but sometimes my handwriting is not the best, especially when I get excited. But we'll try to get that too. So, the nervous system, okay? The nervous system has only 2 modes of being. And this is a very, very oversimplified picture of the brain, okay? And up here we have the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. Here we have the emotional brain, the limbic system. Here we have the instinctual brain, the brainstem. And of course, as I've said about the neuroscience that I'm teaching here, it's very simplified. Of course, there are a million different cofactors that are going on in the brain at any given time. But for practical intents and purposes, this explanation is useful. Okay? And so here we have something called the amygdala. And the amygdala I liken to the alarm switch in our brain. And the amygdala can become sensitized. It can become habituated to be overactive. And sometimes even gets to the point where it stays stuck on. And so, or at least on most of the time. Okay, that can happen either from chronic stress buildup, just the day in, day out buildup of stress over time. That can happen from trauma. That can happen from drinking too much coffee. That can happen for lots of reasons. The alarm switch gets turned on a lot in our life. And you maybe have heard things like this before, but as human beings, we're the only animals, as far as we know, that can turn on our alarm switch, which is meant to be turned on in the situations of life or death danger. Well, we turn on our alarm switch all the time for things that aren't necessarily immediately life and death. And there's a funny title to a book, which is a good book out there, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it's because basically they don't have this thinking part of the brain. They don't have the memory. They don't have the capacity to anticipate future pains or worries or problems. Nor do they have the memory the ability to recall past ones even in a subconscious way, such that their alarm switch is only on if there's real and present danger, and then it's off if there is not. Well, we tend to get stuck in patterns where it runs on all the time, or at least a lot of the time. And most people kind of consider this a typical just way of life. They're running on adrenaline fuel, they're rushing, they feel hurried, they feel panicked, they feel, oh my, like I'm doing the dishes and then I'm doing this, and then they feel frantic, right? This is like a normal way of being for a lot of people, and maybe you even recognize this yourself, okay? So, I'm noticing that my head's cut off a little bit, but so the nervous system has only two modes of operation, and one is what I'm calling surviving mode, and the other is thriving mode, okay? Now, surviving mode is when the alarm switch is on. And again, it doesn't matter whether there's a real and present danger or if there's not a real and present danger. If the alarm switch is on, we are going to be in one of three response modes. These are like the subcategories of the surviving mode. And the first one is fight. You've probably heard of the fight-flight mechanism, right? The second one, as we just said, is flight. The third one is freeze. And some people haven't heard of the freeze mechanism, okay? But fight, flight, or freeze are all part of the survival mechanism. And then, again, loosely, for useful intents and purposes, these are all when the sympathetic nervous system is dominant, the SNS. The sympathetic nervous system, okay, is dominant. Again, sympathetic and parasympathetic are always working in tandem, but for useful, practical purposes, when the surviving mode is on, we're in either fight, flight, or freeze, and we often switch between from fight to flight to freeze, from freeze to fight, and back and forth and in and out, but a lot of people live most of their life in these states of being. Now, our nervous system is the mediator of our experience. So, as I say to people, it doesn't matter if you're on the proverbial beach in Hawaii. If your surviving part of your nervous system is turned on, you will find reasons and justifications for being angry, fight, afraid, flight, or depressed, freeze. So these fight, flight, and freeze have different kind of qualifying experiences, quality experiences that go with them. So fight, anger, frustration, impatience, criticism, the need to control things, feeling resentment, bitterness, blaming, all the nervous system stuck in fight mode, or at least experiencing fight mode in those moments. Flight, fear, anxiety, worry, insecurity, panic, doubt, okay? Freeze, hopelessness, helplessness, lethargy, fatigue, depression, sadness, thoughts of death, thoughts of suicide, just feeling numb, dissociating, checking out from your body, numbing out. That's all freeze, right? And so it's very useful to look at it this way, because if the nervous system is in this mode, it is going to feel one of those things. It's completely natural for it to feel that way, okay? It's completely natural for us to feel angry, afraid, or depressed if our nervous system alarm switch is switched on, okay? In fact, it's going to be impossible to not feel those things if our nervous alarm switch is on, okay? Now, let's take it to the other side. It's also equally natural when the surviving mode is off and the thriving mode is on. It's also equally natural to feel everything having to do with social engagement, okay? I realize that that's spelled not correctly over there. Social engagement, though, is the key to the thriving part of the nervous system, because human beings evolved such that we would thrive in the company and connection of others, taking care of each other as a village, as a tribe, as a community, as a nation. And so we evolved the nervous system mechanisms to be in thriving mode when we are harmonious with one another. And there are tons of rewards in our brain: pleasure, happiness, health, immunity, creativity, higher brain power, be able to think outside the box. All these things happen in the thriving part of our nervous system, and they all have to do with the willingness and the openness to be socially engaged. Even if we're alone, even if we're a hermit in the mountains, if we're in the thriving mode, we're still going to feel connected to others. We're still going to be sharing benefit and love with others. We're still going to be a part of the interconnected fabric of life, okay? So the thriving mode also has a couple different ways of operating. And again, this is typically PNS, parasympathetic nervous system dominant, okay? But there's social engagement at rest, or kind of in your day-to-day, like, that's a nice sunset, that kind of feeling. That's the thriving mode at rest. Then there's mobilized. Immobilized is when the thriving part of the nervous system is still in dynamic activity, like in play, or in competition, or in achievement, or in going after something that you really want and succeeding. So the thriving mode includes powerful dynamic activity, okay? However, you're still socially engaged, you're still connected, you're still kind of playing by the rules of the game, so to speak. You're not in this mode. While you might be competing, you don't want to hurt the person that you're competing against. In fact, you might have a really healthy attitude about competition, which says, I want the best challenge possible because together we thrive, we make each other better, right? And that there's more than enough for every, so if say this is the business world, you would have the attitude of, there's more than enough for everybody. I want to succeed, but I hope you succeed too. In fact, let's help each other succeed. And let's create win-win scenarios. That's the thriving part of the nervous system. Over here in the surviving part of the nervous system, we're going to be in win-lose mode, okay? My win is your loss, and your win is my loss. And we're constantly in this struggle, fight, competition mode. And as you see, that's fairly common, Even though this is really natural, this is really common, okay? And so there's social engagement at rest, and there's social engagement when we're mobilized, and then there's social engagement immobilized. And what does that mean? That means the ability to be still and intimate. It includes being physically, sexually intimate. However, we can also be sexually active over here in much more dominating and aggressive ways, or fearful and submissive ways. But here, we're intimate and connected, and we're raw, and we're vulnerable, and we're willing. And it doesn't also have to be about physical intimacy, but I'm just making the obvious point that an animal, we are animals. An animal will not lay down on its back naked unless it feels safe. It will not do so willingly. Of course, it will often do so when it's afraid, but that's a completely different dynamic than what we're talking about in the thriving part of the nervous system. But this is also just the ability, your willingness to connect, to snuggle, to cuddle, to just sit still and hold hands. Any of these kind of intimate moments, to share your kind of emotional vulnerability. These are all possible within the thriving part of the nervous system. And they are not possible when the surviving part of the nervous system is turned on. So what you see here is that there is a dividing line. And kind of everything that we really like about life is over here. And by no means am I putting this system down. This is absolutely necessary. If you're in an alley and there's a pit bull off its chain that doesn't look like it's been trained very well, or maybe it's been trained to be mean, you want to be able to fight, flight. You want to be able to fight, run away, or hide. Again, that's fight is run away is flight, and hide is freeze. you want to choose one of those options, okay? And it's absolutely imperative. And that system is never going to go away. Our survival instincts are never going to go away. What we want to do is learn how to turn off the surviving mode when we are not in a situation like that. Because hopefully most of us are only in a situation like that, you know, once a year, right? But instead, some of us are living in this system 99% of the time, and we barely even know what this feels like. And I want to switch that. I want this to be 1% and this to be 99%, okay? And that's when I know that I'm going to be in charge of my own health, in charge of my own nervous system, okay? And so what we see here is a dividing line in the difference between being in surviving mode and thriving mode is a neurobiological felt sense of safety. This is not an intellectual sense of safety. This is not, I can look around and know that there's nothing wrong. Because many of us have the experience of looking around and know that nothing's wrong, and yet we still can have a panic attack, or we still can be angry. We can still be full of a type of anger that is really meant to fight off an attack from a tiger, and yet we get that way over, you know, the dishes being left in the sink, or the cap being left off the toothpaste, okay? So, when our nervous system feels deep beneath, down here, in the instinctual part of the brain, well beneath our rational thought, well beneath our conscious awareness, when our nervous system feels safe, we'll be in thriving mode. When it feels a threat, we'll be in surviving mode. Period. End of story. And so, here's the thing. The main thing that I want to communicate about this, okay, is that, well, this is the origin of disease. When we get stuck here, why is that? Because when we're here, our whole system is mobilizing energy to fight, run away, and hide. And therefore it is diverting energy away from what it considers non-essential processes. Digestion, fighting the common cold, growing your hair and nails, repairing tissue, repairing cells, learning, remembering, all this, you know, let alone energy diverted away from the systems that are required to feel happy, to feel joy, to feel love, to feel connection. There's no want to feel connection here. This part of your brain does not care about being happy. It only cares about surviving. And therefore it has what is called a negativity bias. It will literally search and look and search out danger, and we label anything that we consider negative, anything that we don't like, as dangerous. And so we'll go into alarm mode based on the tyranny of our likes and dislikes. And so if we don't like something, we'll be over here, okay? And we can get stuck, and we can get stuck in one of these states such that, and if we're in one of these states for a short amount of time, we call it a state. If we stay in that state for a little bit longer, we call it a mood. If we keep staying in that state longer, we call it a trait. But pretty soon, when we stay in that state for an extended period of time, it becomes our personality. And we say, I am anxious, or I am afraid, or I am depressed, or I am angry, okay? And we actually become identified with our surviving part of our nervous system as who we are. We become so used to it, it becomes what we think we are and how we identify. Then we're in a tricky predicament because it is here in the instinctual survival part of the brain that our identity gets tied up with our survival mechanisms. And then if, in order to change, it actually feels unsafe. In order to start being new, to start being different, it actually feels unsafe. Well, that's for a number of reasons, but one of them is that there are extremely powerful chemicals that are meant to be able to have the mom lift the car off her baby, right? They're extremely... It's a funny comment, Mom. there are extremely powerful chemicals running through our body. And when these chemicals are running through our body, a lot or most of the time, or even all of the time, we become neurobiologically accustomed to that. Our brain has a way, our whole system has a way of establishing and maintaining a status quo. So you've heard the saying, we are what we eat, but really we are what we are. Whatever our state of being is neurotransmitters, it's hormones, it's blood chemistry, it's heart rate, it's blood pressure, it's organ activity, it's digestive enzymes, it's muscle tone, it's fascia, it's bone structure. You get the point. It is through our entire being. There's no such thing really as mental health. Everything is completely embodied. And so when we get used to that state of being, we get used to that neurobiological stew that we are literally eating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not just the 3 or 4 times a day that we eat, hopefully. We're not eating too much more than that. But when we're eating this neurobiological stew 24/7, we become accustomed to it. And then even if it's not something that we like, not something that we want, not something that we desire to be angry, afraid, or depressed, when we try to make changes to not be, our brain goes, whoa, that is not cool. I'm used to that adrenaline. I'm used to that anger. I'm used to that depression. I'm used to that numbness. I've modified myself to be able to maintain a status quo with those chemicals coursing through me all the time. And we literally become addicted to who we are. We become addicted to our state of being. And when we go to try to change, it actually is very similar to going through withdrawal. And we going through, even though that change might be better, might be preferable, okay? Here's another thing that is a very interesting dynamic, okay? When this part of the alarm system is on, right? It's on, and it's sending messages, it sends messages to the body to fight, flight, or freeze, right? And we've talked in previous videos about the relationship between tension and emotion in our body, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but the message that I want to send right now is that our brain sends a message to our body to be afraid, angry, or depressed, fight, run away, or hide. And then it also, this part of the brain is going, wait, I don't see a tiger, there's no gun, and so this part of the brain does not like feeling afraid, angry, or depressed for no reason. And so it's sending impulses. Not only does the alarm switch send impulses into the body, it sends impulses up into the higher parts of the brain that say danger, danger, danger. And the higher part of the brain goes, and it starts to make up reasons, and it starts to look for reasons. It will actually scan the environment, and it will perceive danger even where it doesn't exist. And then people will say no, and they feel really justified in their story of their perception about why they should be angry, afraid, or depressed. And perhaps the story that the part of the brain will scan for is something that actually did happen in the past, but it's not happening now. But yet people will still say, oh, that must be the reason why. But the reason why, even if we're going to have compassionate and empathetic understanding of the validity of difficult things that have happened in our past, of the trauma, of the abuse, of the neglect, of all these things that are things that I work with every single day, and I by no means am trying to communicate a lack of empathy or understanding about the difficulty of past trauma. However, when we're in the present moment, the stories or the reasons why we justify the alarm switch being on are secondary. They are secondary to the cause. They are secondary to the cause of the alarm switch. And there is nothing There's no amount of rearranging or reshuffling or understanding or having insight. There's no amount of, besides a very basic understanding and perhaps some connections that you make that help you kind of validate that you're not crazy, that, you know, something really wrong did happen, or beyond that, it doesn't change the nervous system alarm switch state. And the only real effective way to heal is to turn off the surviving alarm system and turn on the thriving mode. And this is a beautiful thing, because your nervous system knows how to heal. It knows how to heal all on its own. And this is a profound kind of experience of a willingness to experience and let go into the realization that you don't need to try to heal yourself. And here's an analogy that might help you bring this concept home. If I have a cut on my finger, I don't need to try to make it heal. I don't need to instruct my body how to heal it, nor do I need to know how it got cut. My body does not care if it was a knife or a piece of glass or a paper cut. It's absolutely inconsequential to my body. What I need to do is provide the right conditions so that my body can heal it. The wrong conditions are, oh man, I hope it heals. What if it doesn't heal? What if it's, oh, there's a scab there. I don't like the way that looks. Let me pick that off. And then all of a sudden it's infected because we're messing with it. What we really need to do is clean it and leave it alone and let nature take its course. Well, the nervous system has the exact same capacity. The nervous system is your body. But for some reason we don't trust this capacity of our nervous system the same way we trust our body to heal a cut, or our body to heal the flu or the common cold. We know that if we just give it some time and we kind of leave it alone and we rest and we take care of ourselves, it'll heal. But we don't have the same trust with our nervous system. And so what I'm imploring people to do is spend the time and the energy and inform yourself and practice and make it become your life's most important practice. I mean, I have a long experience with depression, anxiety, anger, panic. And it wasn't until I decided that that I had to dedicate my life to rewiring my nervous system to be mostly in the thriving mode, mostly parasympathetic, to be dominant and over here, and only very rarely coming here. It wasn't until then that I actually healed all the symptoms, okay? And so, your nervous system has this capacity if we provide it the right conditions. Well, what are the right conditions? The right conditions are turning off the alarm switch and turning on the thriving mode. And the more time we spend in thriving mode, the more we have a natural access to the neurotransmitters, to the hormones, to the blood chemistry, to the heart rate, to the organ activity, to the digestive capacities, to the immune power, to the happiness, to the feeling of connection, to the feeling of wellness. That healing happens by itself, actually. And this is really what we need to focus on and tend to, is being the one who's in charge of our nervous system. Instead of reacting either to my past and recreating over and over and over again, which is a common phenomenon. If you study trauma and you go to become a therapist, you learn about trauma reenactment. Or we become creative. And what we do is we create the conditions in our nervous system necessary to thrive. So even if bad stuff has happened, we can choose to do the work to rewire our nervous system. And that work is what is effective. That is what is practical. It's not about dismissing or ignoring or denying or belittling the past difficulties that we've had. In fact, it's about saying, I'm not going to let them harm me anymore. I was already harmed enough in the past. Now, I need to choose to stop the harm, to stop the bleeding. Because when I stay in surviving mode and I'm not in actual danger, I'm staying in a state of harm. And however that state of harm is triggered, I'm the only one that can has the power, especially when I take the responsibility and I take the power back from saying this caused me or that caused me or you caused me or the weather caused me or my loss of job caused me. All these things caused me to be angry, afraid, or depressed. Well, then I have no power. If all these other things caused me to be angry, afraid, and depressed, then I have no power. All the other things have the power. But when I take the power back and say, even if, aside from, and especially because bad stuff happens, I choose to be wholehearted. And that is the motto of this movement that I'm trying to create, the way in which I'm trying to live my life, my kind of reason for being is this wholehearted motto that you're hearing me talk about. And so the motto is, again, even if, aside from, and especially because bad stuff happens, I choose to be wholehearted. And how I do that, how I accomplish that, is by learning how to turn off my surviving mode and turn on my thriving mode. And what we're going to continue to talk about in these lessons, in these daily videos, in these weekly videos, is now the practical tools for being able to do that. And once we understand the theory, then we can have the motivation to have the courage to say, you know what? No. The reasons why I'm telling myself of why I'm upset right now it doesn't matter. Again, everything could be great in my life. If my surviving mode is on, I'm going to be afraid, I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to be depressed. And everything can be stressful in my life. What other people would consider stressful. And there are plenty of examples of human beings that have learned how to stay in the thriving mode despite amazing obstacles and challenges. And they are able to meet them with a tremendous amount of resilience and creativity and positivity and success and achievement. And these are the people that really, live amazing lives, is they're actually able to remain in the thriving mode and remain mobilized despite stress. Stress is not the enemy. Stress is required for us to grow and thrive. Any extraordinary being has the ability to metabolize and digest tremendous amounts of stress and thrive because of it. Not fight to control everything. That will work for a little while, but then it'll end up having us sick and burnt out. Not be afraid to even engage or hide away and numb out. So let me take a look here and see if there's any questions. Okay, so no questions right now. And right on. Nice to see you too. Glad you're here, and it's no problem. It'll just run it from the beginning, and then you can, so people are, oftentimes they're going to be seeing these after they've already been run live. You can still ask questions. Just ask them in the same comment stream, and I'll go back and check them, and I'll either answer in writing or I'll just do another video about them and tag you. Okay? So I'm here to share this for your benefit, and really, that's my reward. That's my thriving mode. This is how I'm mobilized. This is how I am engaged and happy and feeling wonderful in my life, is through service to others. And we're not going to want to be in service to others when we're over here. We're in self-preservation mode over here. There's no feeling of community. There's a feeling of isolation, and I got to take care of me and mine. And how much do we see this? This is endemic in our society. I got to take care of me and mine. And again, this is win, lose. The surviving part of the nervous system. My win is your loss. Your win is my loss. And so I'm constantly feeling like a deprivation mode. And I need to fight, run away, or hide from life. But here, win-win. I feel connected. I feel supported. I feel nourished. I feel generous. There's much more than enough to go around. Let's hold hands, let's share, let's collaborate, let's join together, let's make a movement, a wholehearted movement. And that's what we're doing here. I'm happy to have you to be a part of it. I hope that you spread the love if this is benefiting you by sharing these videos and you know, telling your friends, and, you know, the more momentum we have behind it, the more people are connected, the more of us involved, the more we will build energy that can benefit us all, and we can start to influence our communities in larger and larger and larger ways. This is my vision. I have a really big vision for this. And so, but I can't do it without you. I have to do it as a part of the thriving part of the nervous system, which is socially engaged and connected. We're all together. Together, we thrive. All right? I love you all very much. And I look forward to continue to engage with you in these ways. And I really hope that you ask questions, and I really hope that you request certain topics for these videos. Tell me what's going on in your lives. I'm really used to, on a daily basis, fielding a lot of it's a lot easier for me when there's questions. It's really kind of strange for me to just be talking to a camera right now in an empty room. So it'll be more juicy, it'll be more alive, it'll be more rich the more you feed into it with your own legitimate present moment circumstances and questions, okay? Love you all. See ya.